there is a principle, an ancient, profound principle, called Wu Wei. The term Wu means none, or not, no, negation, and Wei has a complex combination of meanings. It can mean action, making, striving, but the best, most direct translation in this context is forcing. And so, Wu Wei is the principle of not forcing in anything that you undertake. Now, we know this instinctively. When we observe any performance by an artist, be it a dancer, an actor, or a musician, we know immediately when the performance is forced. And when it is forced, we say, it doesn't ring true. It's too artificial. It doesn't seem to be natural. Conversely, many people who study the Taoist doctrines misinterpret Wu Wei. They believe that Wu Wei means do nothing in the sense of laissez-faire, be lazy, always be entirely passive. It does not mean that there is a time for action. When you study the martial art of Judo, you learn to use muscle, to exert force, only at the precise right moment. When your opponent is hopelessly overextended and off balance, then you add a little, minimal muscle to your movement, and you effortlessly throw them across the room. But only then. You never use muscle, you never use force at the wrong moment. For, as Shakespeare knew perfectly well, there is a tide in the affairs of men, which, taken at its flood, leads on to fortune. And so, Wu Wei is fundamentally based on knowledge of the tide, the drift of things, the current. You must get with it. Wu Wei is the art of sailing rather than the strenuous, exhausting art of rowing. One of the most famous sayings in the Tao Te Ching beautifully illustrates this principle in the moral sphere. Superior virtue has no intention to be virtuous, and thus is truly virtuous. Inferior virtue, by contrast, cannot let go of the idea of its own virtuousness, and thus is not truly virtuous. So, one could also say the real Wu Wei is not intentionally Wu Wei, and so is truly Wu Wei. But inferior Wu Wei tries so desperately to be passively effortless that it becomes the most strenuous effort of all. In other words, Wu Wei is not a matter of cultivated passivity, or even of cultivated spontaneity, because there are people who think